This Little League World Series, and you kind of demonstrated this, sir, Lubie, when we were talking about the Hawaii Vanderbilt game, a game that you would not have given a flying fuck about at any other time and for any other reason, but that you were encouraged by the professor to put $25 on the money line at 6-1. But you were all in on this thing, and you remembered chapter and verse exactly what happened and transpired in the last 17 minutes of the game, described in great detail, as if you were doing an ESPN highlight show. And that was over $25. So I happen to be in a bar, and I'm watching this Little League World Series. You know how they put that little thing up, and it's it's always kind of stupid, I think, because you're asking an 11-year-old, what your favorite movie is. What do you expect them to say? Citizen Kane?
Yeah, I hate when they do that.
They put up about this little kid, came up, I think, with like the bases loaded, a little tapper to the pitcher to end the inning. But they put up that his favorite food was a chicken sandwich. All right, so all of a sudden, when this grounder, this little tapper goes out to the mound, I hear this guy yell, "You know what, kid? Take a chicken sandwich and shove it up your ass." And then the guy was grousing, that he had money on the game. And I thought, well, I mean, that proves the point. You put a few bucks on a ball game, it could definitely change the dynamic of your character. Shove a chicken sandwich up your ass, you told this little kid.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Welcome to an abridged edition, but nonetheless an edition of our Degenerate Friday program as we're back in action here. We're waiting for the return to the United States of Mr. Morocco so we can go back into full swing. That's his new wrestling name, by the way. Professor Mike Lubie Lubitz wants to be known as Mr. Morocco.
Wasn't there already a Don Morocco?
Could have been.
The illegitimate son of Don Morocco?
Leave it to Lubie to plagiarize a wrestling name and then
I think it was spelled with a U, though. I think it was like Muraco.
Yeah, this is Morocco. That's how you spell Morocco, right?
You got to come in with a fez because Lubie would look good in a fez.
You know what? It's funny you should say that because I used to have to wear a fez in this one restaurant I worked in, and it was fezzes on. It wasn't because you were trying to keep the hair out of the food in the kitchen. It was just part of the uniform. The Dharma Greb, famous Dharma Greb, which was in Los Angeles. Very popular restaurant. We made a lot of money there, so it was worth putting on the costume. I'm not sure what kind of transformation Lubie might have gone through after his adventures in Morocco, but you would have to think, the way Lubie's luck is swinging, that his next stop on the itinerary was Libya, right? So he was going to be ensconced in floods.
I mean, honestly, the way Shirley likes to travel, it's not out of the question, right? Like everywhere you go is pretty much a potential disaster zone.
Yes, and leave it to Lubie to visit almost all of these sites as the disaster, the catastrophe is just about to take place. Professor, how are you? Did you get involved in any of the action last night? There were a couple of college football games, including, was there a line on the Hurricanes Bethune-Cookman game?
I don't know. I just turned into that game, and I got to tell you, Defo, nothing sums up the transfer portal era more than something I noticed early in the game. You want to talk what hath college football wrought with these new NIL and transfer portal era rules?
Yes.
The most transfer portal I can think of is the fact that Bethune-Cookman's starting quarterback is a white kid. Like, if that doesn't scream transfer portal, I don't know what does.
It's like, what do they call the guy that's out front of the band there? The marching band. They got with the guns and everything.
Yeah.
Calvin Murphy.
Drum major, something like
drum
that?
major, yeah. Being like having that be a white guy at FAMU.
Right, exactly.
Yes, I mean, just as unlikely. Bethune-Cookman did not look like, I mean, they literally looked like Lilliputians there compared to the Hurricanes. So I don't know if the Hurricanes are an especially big club. I don't know that they're in the stature of like Georgia or maybe Alabama when it comes to linemen. But have you ever seen a team look smaller compared to the other team in a college football game than Bethune-Cookman did against Miami last night?
Because, they're doing a lot of success, but Colorado's got a lot of Oompa Loompas on that Buffalo squad. There's a lot of guys that looks like they've been skipping the meal money on the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah,
they're making it work. It seems to be like a recruiting philosophy with Dion, but they are tiny if you're watching that team.
Yeah, I would imagine lightning fast, though. I mean, that was the old Jimmy
Yes,
Johnson
exactly.
downsizing theory, where you take the safeties and make them linebackers, linebackers you make them linemen, and then all of a sudden you got the whole Burgess Meredith formula going. You need speed, Rock. You need speed.
Yeah, but he always
Uh,
puts two giant guys in the middle of the defense to anchor it and make it work.
Blatant mismatch. Unfortunate. I tuned into the game. It seemed like there were less than 100 people in the stands. So
Well, would you have gone? Well, hell, you were. Where were you? You're like half an hour from the stadium. I didn't notice the Defo man attending.
no, I haven't been to a Hurricane game in a long, long time. I mean, there was a period of my life there over 20 some odd years where I was at every one. And, that slowly dissipated my desire to travel and deal with what it takes to get into and out of a ball game, as
Hard to
opposed to
disagree.
just sitting there and watching it on TV.
Hard to disagree with in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, once I go, I'm usually pretty happy that I did, but my level of tolerance for staying the entire ball game is definitely dissipated over the years. So I start thinking, do I really want to run down there and spend $200 to go take in a half of a football game,
I'm.
especially in this case?
I mean, I went last week, and I still do enjoy going to a college football game. Although I don't think the Hurricanes have exactly that on campus atmosphere you get with some teams.
Right.
But that said, on my best day, I'm not going to Bethune-Cookman. I mean, come on, that's a lot of work to go down there on a Thursday night, no less. Even if we didn't, do some other stuff on Thursday nights, that's a lot of work.
No doubt about it. All right. I mean, you learn nothing from this ball game. You have to ask yourself. I understand the purpose of it. Is it even appropriate to play this as the third game of the season? You just had a huge win over Texas A&M, and now you're playing Bethune-Cookman. I don't know who the Hurricanes have on the horizon next week,
I mean,
but
arguably, it's a good spot
yeah.
to do it, right? Because you can game plan for Texas A&M. You don't have to worry about putting too much new in. It's not illegitimate. I mean, if you're going to put Bethune-Cookman in, there's probably no ideal time to do it.
Is there some state mandate that demands that the Hurricanes play Bethune-Cookman every year? Because I don't know. Do they play them annually? It seems like they're on the schedule enough to make you think that they do this every season.
I don't think it's a mandate as much as it's a free win. And let's be honest, look, there are a few FCS schools that nobody really wants a piece of. Like, you really don't want to accidentally ship North Dakota State onto the schedule because you might walk away with something embarrassing. I don't think Bethune-Cookman's likely to ever embarrass you. So, it's not a bad team to slip in if you're going to have like an FCS rival. It's in state. There's some interest there, and it's a free win.
Yes, and it was an easy one too. I mean, I only watched a couple of drives by the Hurricanes, and you could see the way that game was going. I don't know if they eased up late in the ball game. They ended up scoring 48 points for the second week in a row. Well, what's your thought? You're a Hurricane fan, I believe, Professor. Over the years that I've known you, do you not have a very strong affinity for the Hurricane program?
Yeah, I do.
All right. What do you think? I mean, are we seeing progress? This Tyler Van Dyke looks like he did a couple of years ago as opposed to last year.
I mean, I think, look, you've got 3 opponents in. I think you're definitely seeing progress.
Yeah.
How much? Who knows? I mean, we talked about it last week, I guess, or Monday after the game.
Yeah.
Where Miami is as a program, I can't say with 100% certainty at this point. I can tell you they're going to be favored over Temple next week. They're probably going to be favored in most of the rest of their games. Clemson comes down here October the 21st. The week before that, you go to North Carolina. Those are 2 spots where you might be like slight underdogs, but I don't think you're going to be a heavy underdog in either game. And then towards November 11th, you're at Florida State, and that's, if you're Miami right now, that's looking like the big acid test on your schedule. So really 3 games left that you shouldn't win or not. I mean, maybe necessarily not be favored in. Maybe you can win all 3. We'll see. I don't think any of them are necessarily great shakes. Florida State, obviously very highly ranked right at the moment, but I don't know if they're unbeatable by any means. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think we're necessarily dealing with, last year's Georgia or a Saban powerhouse era Alabama squad out of the Seminoles. They have a nice team, but is it like an all-time great team? I'm not going to go that far.
All right.
So we'll see. I mean, look, if you're Miami, there's a lot of things going right right now. Game 1, the run defense looked very strong. Game 2, you made some mistakes, but as we saw, the quarterback's back. Van Dyke is back to a level he looked at 2 years ago, where again people were talking about this guy not coming into 23, but in 22 as a potential first-round draft pick. And he's kind of playing at that level again. If he can maintain that, Miami could be interesting in all the rest of their games.
It's been interesting so far. I mean, obviously the one big challenge there was the Texas A&M game, and what do we make of Texas A&M? Are they in a position where they rebound off of that loss and come back and distinguish themselves this year, or is it sayonara for Jimbo?
The SEC. I don't know if it's sayonara for Jimbo because I'm still not sure Texas A&M can afford to fire him. I mean, I don't know what the price of oil is.
Yeah.
Right at the moment, but it's not like they have unlimited money in that program. We probably won't find out much about Texas A&M this week as they're playing Louisiana Monroe. Although Louisiana Monroe does come in 2-0, so we'll see. Although they're close wins over Army and Lamar, so maybe the 2-0 is a little bit deceptive. Here's what we know about Texas A&M. In terms of recruiting material, we know Jimbo's got as much talent as on that roster of anybody Miami's going to see other than maybe Florida State. I mean, and just in terms of raw material, Texas A&M's got as much as UNC. They probably, maybe not as much as Clemson in terms of recruiting material, but on that same type of level, and then maybe the same amount as Florida State. The coaching really development part of it hasn't been there at Texas A&M in the Jimbo finisher administration. So we'll see what they do throughout the season. They certainly were a team that came in with expectations in 2023, so people anticipated them being good. Whether that reality plays out, I mean, the SEC West is really rough. Like, you could have a good team and go 5-7 in the SEC West because that division is just brutal and likely to get more so next year with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas.
All right. I was having a discussion, the young gentleman that I've been working with on the No Filter shows this week, a kid out of California named Henry. He is a burgeoning degenerate, has action on a lot of games, as a lot of young people do now. So he surveys the college slate, looking for some kind of a spot where he can make a score. He thought that this week was one of the ugliest weeks on the college football schedule that he had seen, that there was no game of any particular marquee value. What's your thought about
marquee there? Are we viewing interest, betting interest, some combination of both? I mean, look, we've talked about it a lot over the years.
Yeah.
If you're just looking for something to play, you can always find something worth a shot in any full college week. But I think most people want the combination of something I'm going to watch on TV, I'm going to watch game day and get hyped up, and I'm going to be able to take a side on it. They're a little bit thinner. I think there's actually some value in Florida and Tennessee this week, which will, of course, be the primetime game. I can't remember if it's ABC or if it's ESPN. I think it's ESPN, but let me double-check that right now.
All right.
Yeah, it's the 7 o'clock game on ESPN, so it's ESPN's primetime game. I think there's a little action value there, and obviously it's one of the bigger name matchups of the week, even though I don't know how many people really expect that much out of the Florida Gators in 2023. But, again, sort of like what has become the Miami-Florida State rivalry, even if it's kind of useless like it was last year, it's still going to be a primetime game every year.
All right, it is a Degenerate Friday, and always great to have the professor with us for his, especially his college football acumen at this time of the year. And Mark Lawrence is scheduled to join us as well from PlaybookSports.com. That should be coming your way in about a half an hour here on the show, and he'll have a couple of college and pro picks for us based on his trend handicapping and all of those quantifiers that he has in his computer database. And I would imagine if he picks 4 games for us, they'll all be underdogs. What
I think that's very likely.
Yeah. What strikes your fancy? Last night was interesting too because the Philadelphia line against Minnesota was 6 and a hook most of the time that I saw.
I think last night was one of the most brutal games I've ever seen. If you had the Vikings plus 3.5 in the first half,
yeah,
I think that's like a top 5 all-time bad beat.
Oh, the 61-yard field goal?
52 seconds left. The Vikings are going in. Jefferson fumbles over the pylon. Initially, it's not even called over the pylon. The initial call is just out of bounds. Vikings ball at the 1. You're probably going to win they're probably going to be winning the game straight up at halftime. Forget the points. You don't even need them. Replay comes in. They get the ball at the 20. Philly's trying to just run the clock out. I mean, they run 2 or 3 times in a row, but they get like a 20-yard run. So now there's 20 seconds left. And we got to go for field goal range because we're here now. Hurts makes 2 sort of nothing plays, and they bring out the kicker for the 61-yarder, which really it's outdoors in the elements. He shouldn't be making that, and he makes it by like 6 inches. So if you had the Vikings plus 3 and a hook in the first half last night, I think you took an all-timer right on the chin. And then you turn it around. If you had the Eagles -7 or -6.5, depending where you get backdoored with about a minute left. And honestly, you saw it coming all the way because the Vikings got the ball back with about 4 minutes left, and you knew it was going to be the drive where Cousins like, screw it, I'm just throwing to Jefferson like 10 times on this drive until we get down there and get in the end zone. So, yeah, tough all the way around, no matter which side you were on last night.
You could have taken a beating from many different angles.
Exactly.
And it didn't matter which side you were on. You still could have been tormented. Although our friend Sheldon G., who is on top of such things, very closely following them with substantial wagers, said that the final line in Vegas was 6 on that.
So you walk away with a push instead of a loss?
Walk away with a push. I mean, the dagger.
Always better.
What's your philosophy on that? I mean, there's some people that I know that say, well, you always got to buy that half a point or whatever. How do you feel about those kind of wagers, Professor?
I mean, it depends on the half a point price. Because, again, depending on the book you are, to move it from 7 to 6.5 or 6 to 5.5, that might not be minus. I mean, look, the standard issue is -120 juice for it. But depending on where you are, I've seen it priced as much as -140. So definitely not worth it at that price. So you got to pay attention to what your book rules are when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, the dagger naturally hovers over all wagers like a sword of Damocles. And I was talking with the aforementioned Henry about the game, and he had Philadelphia as his survivor pool pick this week over Minnesota.
So now, is it a spread survivor, or if it's just a straight up?
No spread, straight up. Okay. He just thought Philadelphia could not lose to Minnesota. That Kirk Cousins' record
he was
in primetime night games is awful.
By the middle of the third quarter, he was in cruise control, more or less.
First half, it looked a little dicey, and you thought maybe Philadelphia, that there was something up with them, that they were still in some post-Super Bowl slumber, which they kind of went into a little bit in the second half, late in that game against the Patriots the week before, after being up 16-0. They win by 5 points, 25-20. My thinking was in front of the home crowd there in Minnesota, the Cousins record, I don't have any data on that. It's not like I've got Mark Lawrence's database, but I think it is a fair assumption, if you've followed his career over the years, that Kirk Cousins blows in primetime night games.
He does, yes. And the Vikings have not won a Thursday. The stat I saw yesterday, the Vikings have not won a Thursday night game in 45 years. I can't remember.
Imagine it.
I couldn't remember exactly when they started bringing these every Thursday night games.
It doesn't go back that far, yeah.
But no, well, I mean, you got to go back to remember. For a while there, like the last couple weeks of the year, knew the NFL would run a Thursday night game or two. But apparently, I think it was a 6-game streak going into last night. So I guess it would be 7-game streak in a row now.
Yeah.
For the Vikings losing on Thursday nights.
Were you impressed with Philadelphia, or did you think
I was certainly impressed with the way they ran the ball? I mean, the offensive line, which we knew was a monster unit, certainly continued that trend. And Swift, I'm not really surprised Swift looked good. I thought he really had a lot of moments in Detroit, but he sort of got victimized by, everything else being wrong in Detroit over the course of his career there. I thought he's shown promise coming out of college and his early days in the pros. But it nothing like last night. So, I mean, obviously impressive performance by him, by the offensive line. I thought the defensive line really had a lot of moments, which of course we expect to be a strength of Philadelphia, but then kind of got worn out in that 2-minute drill at the end.
You know who got the most camera time last night?
Who?
Your man, Brian Flores. defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings,
Coaching
who
genius.
somehow
Brian Flores.
let them gather up 259 rushing yards. Although early in the game he was having pretty good success
You saw
stopping the
the
passing
story
game.
from last week on that, right?
No.
Where Baker Mayfield told all his teammates he had figured out the Vikings' defensive signals, and turned out all his teammates agreed with him. He did, in fact, know all the Vikings' defensive signals in the second half of that game. So, coaching super genius, Brian Flores, who, of course, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL and held down by the man, got outsmarted by one Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure that's the mark of coaching genius when Baker Mayfield is in your head.
Every shot to the sidelines was Flores. I actually thought maybe he'd become the interim head coach of the Vikings somehow, unannounced to the public, because he was featured as if you had Lombardi coming back from the grave there on the sidelines.
Can we talk about Brian Flores for a second? Because honestly,
I know it's one of your favorites. Yeah, so I brought it up for a purpose.
Every time Tua has one of these monster games, doesn't Brian Flores' lawyers for that lawsuit just go, "Oh, Jesus Christ. This looks so good. We could have gotten him to fucking settle like 2 years ago." And now nobody who watches a fucking Dolphins game is ever gonna vote on your side of this. Like, every time this kid goes out here, he makes you look like such an asshole, Brian. Like, because there's like a whole team of lawyers involved in this. This is like a class action suit. It's not just Brian Flores at the time. It's millions and millions and millions of dollars. And like every black NFL, and I feel like every black NFL coach is like, God damn it. We had to bag. Why did we go with the enemy? Why did we make this jerk off the face of this?
I never understood. I said this throughout his brief tenure here as a head coach, and he actually had, you would have to say, from a one-loss standpoint, a fairly good track record of success. I mean, the year he won the 5 ball games, he had probably. I mean, that was such obvious attempts to sabotage. What's that?
I mean, the year where he was supposed to lose all the ball games.
I mean, they were trying to pay him supposedly to lose games.
To it, jerk off. Yeah,
and Fitzpatrick came in there and rallied the team, and it was funny because every week they would shed whoever had a good ball game the week before, make sure that they sent that guy packing, and they literally, I mean, you would see Chris Greer at like a Shell station in Cooper City. Just and if you saw a big guy pumping gas, he'd offer him a contract.
Lineman, yeah. Here's my thing with all that. Isn't what Brian Flores refused to? I want to win so much. I'm so loving the game. Didn't he turn down everybody's dream gig? Isn't like the dream gig where your boss tells you, "Hey, just screw around," and then the more you screw up, we're going to give you bonuses to pay you. Like,
yes,
if the program director comes to you and says, "Defo, I want you to actively drive the audience away. I want you."
But most of them thought I was attempting to do that anyway.
Be offensive and bore people to death. I want to audibly be able to hear radio dials turning and clicking off. You're like, yeah, I can handle that. That's the easiest gig. I'll just come on here and eat breakfast on the air and chill out. Like, I don't know what the problem is. Brian Flores, you're a moron. Who blows that gig?
Yeah, I guess it offended his competitive sensibilities there, and his obligation to help the players be as strong and good as they possibly can.
You're not coaching at the YMCA. That's not your thing. Player development's not your gig. You're coaching the NFL. You do what your boss tells you to do.
Yeah. And he says that's what Lubie is for, to help drive the audience away.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'll still never forget that. The day I was like 3 days into the job, and I really wasn't that familiar with Lubie. I did find him a little odd, like most people do at first, and probably continually all throughout your relationship. But and I remember the program director was a guy named Ken Charles, who went on to great success. Went out to L.A. and was a program director there for one of their big news stations, and now is in Atlanta at what is it? Is it WSB, the Atlanta station? It's a big one, and so he's had fairly prominent gigs. But he comes in and he looks me right in the eyeball. I don't even know the guy that well. I mean, I'd known him casually through the years, just from being in the business, and he hired me. But he says, "Don't ever let that man crack open a microphone again. You have to be the one that tells him." And I was like, I have to tell him that this is your job. I mean, and that's what the assignment he left me with, which I ignored. And to a modicum of success that we had after that, and of course, Lubie has become a superstar now. Where who's the guy that's traveling the world on vacations all the time? Is it you, Professor? Is it me? No, it's one Mike Lubie Lubitz.
Well,
I
he
mean,
married well. I mean,
yeah,
let's be honest.
yeah.
And
Oh,
that's
no
that's a
doubt.
genuine life skill. There are a lot of dudes who just go through life with that ability.
Not one of my
Yeah, it's not a strong suit for
strengths.
me either.
I'd be a rich man today if I just would stop falling in love like a fool and be willing to make that commitment. All right, what are we looking at, Professor? We got Mark Lawrence coming up in about 15 minutes. We want to look over the college slate, of course, through your eyes. And how have you fared so far this year? And how are you feeling about this week? And where are we going?
As you know, people who watch the what's the other one called? No Filter. No Filter show. Week 1 was a flaming effing disaster. But we bounced back pretty strong last week in week 2, highlighted by Texas, which we called not only straight up, but on the money line at plus 220.
Nice.
So I would say we're probably we had a good week 0, so I'd say we're head above water. But not thriving just yet. Hopefully, we'll continue to get the ship righted and sailing forward this week.
Do you feel that we have much more substance to work with now that you've seen a couple of weeks of college football action, or are there still many things that remain up in the air and
Yeah, I
non-decisive?
think we've got some ideas on some good teams, and then we've got again, the most confusing team in maybe the history of college football in the Colorado Buffaloes. So we'll see.
Yes.
I'm actually looking with these crazy lines to find some spots to go strong against because there's such a swing. I don't remember what the look ahead line was on Colorado and Colorado State, but I'm gonna imagine it was probably somewhere in the range of pick 'em, maybe Colorado -3, and where it's turned out this week is -23.
Yes.
So we're getting those kind of turnarounds. I'm waiting for them to get in the meat of their schedule. Maybe do that next Saturday against Oregon. I'll be very curious what that number goes up at. So there's a team maybe to look to fade. And then some other things we've seen. Again, week 1, we're going to play that in this week. And the Florida Gators, to me, look just god awful in week 1. Their offensive line got beaten by a drum, all week, game long by Utah. Now Utah's got a good defense and it's a tough environment, and I get that. But man, their offensive line looked like they were determined to get Graham Mertz killed in that game. And then their defense really struggled to stop the run throughout the course of the game. Utah, I think they beat them by 16, but really, if you watch that game, that could have been 26 or 36. Utah struggled a bit with the backup quarterback playing, and that's the only thing that kept that game even semi-respectable. And I think we're going to – and fortunately, I think we're getting a little line movement because a lot of people talking about history here, talking about the fact that the Tennessee Volunteers haven't beaten the Florida Gators in the swamp in like 20 years. But I think you're kind of leaning a little bit too much on the past there. And this Florida program is in such a bad spot after being in such a good spot for decades and decades under Steve Spurrier and then Urban Meyer. And I don't see any reason why this number should only be 6. You look at the Gators, really offense couldn't do anything against Utah. Tennessee's defense actually does look to be a little bit improved. It's tough to get a read on Tennessee right now because they played 2 cupcakes, yes, including Virginia. Virginia is a cupcake this year, and looked more balanced. Looked like Josh Heupel there was trying to get away from the passing pretty much every down thing that they did last year, and they ran the ball better and they played better defense in the first 2 weeks. And I look for that trend to continue. So Tennessee opened at 7. Now I'm showing it at 6. So you're getting a little bonus there. I look for them to go into Gainesville and absolutely romp the Gators. I think Billy Napier will find himself on the hot seat at the end of season 2, the way this is going. Because I don't see, and look, everybody's going to say, well, that's because you bitterly despise the Gators. And I don't doubt that that's true.
But you do. You forsake that whole emotional aspect of things when you're involved in wagering. We've seen you bet on teams like Duke that you absolutely despise.
True, I try to, but
Yes.
I think this is a good spot for Tennessee. And the other thing is, I think much like Texas did in week 1, when they played Rice and everybody kind of got down on Texas's passing game. I think Tennessee's kind of been laying in the weeds with teams they knew they could beat anyway. Let's try to establish a little more balance offensively. Let's try to run the ball a little bit more. I think you'll see Heupel open up the playbook this week against Florida, and I think Tennessee's probably going to win very comfortably in that matchup.
All right, so Tennessee possibly laying. I have this. This is probably yesterday's line, since I'm picking it up out of today's New York Post, and they just have the results of World War II posted on the front page. But I had that one 6 and a hook, so
Yeah, it
somewhere in
dropped
that
to
range.
6 this morning.
Okay, went down to 6 points, which was very fortuitous for the people who ended up backing Philadelphia yesterday. That
Yes, it
Carolina
was.
went off a half a point less. All right, so you like Tennessee laying 6 over Florida at the Swamp.
Yes.
A lot of Billy Bobs are going to be leaving there bitterly disappointed if the Gators do get stomped, as you predicted they will. All right, anything else on the slate today?
There was one we kind of liked an under, but we took it early in the week, and unfortunately, tough to give it out today because it has dropped 3 crucial points.
Okay.
During that, and that was in the. We'll just tell you the key. BYU and Arkansas, the initial open on the over-under was 51. It dropped to 50.5, which is where I take it. It is unfortunately down to 47.5 now, and dropping beneath 49 like that, I can't, in good conscience, give it out. So we're gonna end up passing on that one. But look and see if you get a Saturday bounce back tomorrow, and if you do, if it gets back above 49, I think it's another spot. 2 teams that are really going to try to run the ball, not real comfortable with their passing games right now. And 2 good run defenses. So we liked the under there at 50.5. Again, with the drop to 47.5, I can't continue to recommend it. But if it were to bounce back up above 49, I would look to get back on that train. So keep your eye on that number tomorrow, just to give one out. And then the third game, you got North Carolina laying, I believe it's still 7.5. I want to double check my number here.
Right.
Minnesota Golden Gopher. Yeah, it's 7.5. Look, the University of North Carolina is really not a different football team than they were last year. Their defense is god-awful, and they've been very fortunate to this point in the season. You watched that game last week, Appalachian State double overtime. They gave up, was it more? No, just under 500 total yards, and they did it with near complete balance. 275 passing yards allowed, 219 rushing yards allowed. Week 1 wasn't a lot better in total yardage. They did hold that score down with South Carolina, but that was on South Carolina mistakes, mostly penalties in that one. But again, gave up 353 passing yards to South Carolina. It's still an awful defense at UNC. The offense is great, but you look at the offense so far through 2 games, they've been very balanced. It hasn't all been Drake May. They've been running the ball very effectively. Play a Minnesota Gophers team that is really good against the run, has been for a few years there under PJ Fleck. So I don't think North Carolina is going to have that balance. I think they're going to be really dependent on Drake May here. I think, as they say, Defo, styles make fights, and this is stylistically a really good matchup for the University of Minnesota. They're getting 7.5. Would not be surprised if they go into North Carolina and won this ball game over a UNC team that, in my mind, has been very fortunate not to get tagged at least once, if not twice, through the early part of the year.
All right, so the plays from the professor, official plays then would be Minnesota getting 7 and a hook over North Carolina, Tennessee laying 6 against them Gators from the University of Florida, and if you can,
telling you, keep your eye on the total between BYU
Yeah.
and Arkansas, and I'm looking to see. There was a couple other games.
Many people obviously agreed with your assessment there because they started sending it in on that 51.
Yes, they did. And another one. Again, keep your eye on. Maybe this is a spot to maybe just do like a small play, like a half unit play.
Yeah.
Washington going to Michigan State. A lot of people all in on Washington after a couple of impressive early season performances. I think this is a tougher matchup for them here with Michigan State and on the road. Laying 16.5. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. Washington's got talent, particularly at the quarterback position, but it's not like Michigan State in the Big Ten. Haven't seen Michael Penix Jr. before. They saw him plenty at Indiana. I think there'll be some familiarity there. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, with this. Can I just say, with this bullshit case against Mel Tucker, in the weirdest sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual whatever.
That is a strange one. Yes.
I have ever heard in the history of humanity. He sexually assaulted me over the telephone. And not only did I sit there and listen to it for half an hour, I called the guy back the next week. I wouldn't be surprised if the boys kind of rally around Mel Tucker there. And you saw Michigan State come up.
I think after he finished
against
whacking
Washington.
off, she lit up a cigarette.
That's his mistake, right? He
Yeah.
admits he jerked off on the phone. Like,
Yeah.
always deny. If they don't have video of that, it didn't happen. Like, why are you, why are you admitting to that? I'm never copping to that one.
Well, I'm kind of along the lines of you with some suspicions about the whole thing and how it transpired. Because also, I don't know if this was just stuff that was coming out of Tucker's defense team, but they had decided, to stop paying her for some of her appearances there, where she was talking to the team and the players about sexual assault and sexual violence, which is also part of the outrageous irony of this particular story. You're saying they were souring on Tucker, and that this is just an easy way out.
Love him.
What a setup, huh?
I think the boosters feel like, okay, we gave this guy the giant deal after just 1 year. Last year wasn't so great. That it's just my theory, but yeah, this reeks of a booster who didn't want to pay. I think the number's like north of 70 million.
Yes,
on a buyout. So that seems very suspicious to me at this point. And again, the whole circumstances of this case, as I've read it thus far, seem very suspicious to me.
Yeah, because your first reaction when you heard about this whole thing being constituted as a sexual assault is, why didn't she just hang up the phone?
Exactly.
It wasn't like this woman was confined in some garage somewhere and couldn't escape. Not condoning the activity if it was something that was truly offensive, and psychologically damaging to this particular person.
How psychologically damaging can it be if you hang around for half an hour of it?
That's it. And plus, it's not like it would be some instantaneous thing. She had to see this transpiring and decided to stick around. Yes. What was she, Svengali'd or under some trance?
It is the strangest case I can remember reading of this type in a long time.
And this is a woman who's an expert on dealing with sexual violence and acts of this type.
Profession. Yes.
Very strange. Yeah, you're right.
There's some weird elements to this particular.
Yeah, this is her area of expertise, is how to fend this kind of stuff off and prevent it from happening. And she's very much involved in it. And then, as you said, what would be the reason to call back except to tell him to go fuck himself? Which I don't know that was mentioned. I guess they had a call after that, but very, very strange story.
There's a lot of those this week too. But yes, that's definitely one of the lead ones. I wouldn't be shocked if Sparty, like I said, rallied around the flag here against the Washington team that has a lot of good elements, but actually showed some bad elements last year too. So we'll see.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we have some plays here from the professor, Mark Lawrence, scheduled to join us in short order, and we'll get his opinion about colleges and the pros. Anything on the pro schedule that you like? I know you're a big fan of the Patriots, and are expecting them to give the Dolphins much of a battle in this ball game behind.
I'm really not, honestly. I mean, and I saying up front, not great with the pros, not really my specialty. But I don't really see any reason, the way Tua has kind of owned the New England Patriots to this point through his career, why people are expecting much of a – and let's be honest here. Is there any quarterback in the history of the NFL that people are more desperate to give a pass to than Mac Jones? I mean, that attempt on
everybody with Belichick, I guess,
last week.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to talk about how well he almost came back. He made the game effort, blah 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 blah. Like I don't know too many guys who get the amount of excuse that Mac Jones does.
Lubie hates him. When I first saw Mac Jones in the preseason of his rookie year, when he was about to take over the helm there, I thought, what, guy showed some potential. That hasn't necessarily manifested itself in any kind of play that you can count on with a level of confidence from week to week, but he did have impressive numbers. I guess they started throwing a ball like crazy after they got down 16-0 in that ball game.
54 attempts. That
yes.
I don't know how impressive the numbers actually were, but
It was like 35 for 54. He had 350 some odd yards. I mean, nothing. It was the kind of statistics that you put up when you were trailing badly early in the ballgame. Maybe
exactly.
because of things that you had done yourself. That was a weird play. The more you mention it, that Jefferson play last night. What were the chances of that happening? Where it would roll through the end zone, and and barely. I mean, the guy just lost contact with the ball as it
Yep.
goes flying over the pylon there. By rule, which is a strange rule, it becomes a touchback ball possessed by the other team.
Joys of the NFL, Defo.
Doesn't that seem like an odd rule, like an overwhelming punitive
Yes, everybody hates that rule.
consequence of the fumble going through the end zone?
It does seem, pretty
You would think it would be a
large.
wash. At the worst, you would get the ball at the spot of the fumble, right? And the team that had the ball would
Or maybe
retain
like
possession.
you get the ball at the 20. They take you back to the 20, but you keep the ball at their 20, so you're still in field goal. I don't know, something. It is not a popular rule, particularly with the degenerate crowd. Pretty much everybody I know has lost a game on that rule at some point during their degenerate career.
It was such ugliness because the guy had made a great play. It looked like they were going to have the ball at the worst on the 1 yard line. And then I wasn't sure if he actually made the catch, but you could clearly see that he took a couple of steps before that happened. And as he's diving for the pylon, he loses control of the ball. It rolls through there. And for that, I thought they were going to take a knee, Philadelphia, at that point. Run the ball a couple of times up the middle and let that
up
be
the
it.
middle and go to half and happy with our lead. Yeah, totally. Look, 100% like that was going to happen. And then a 61-yard field goal. Speaking, by the way, of degenerates and our degenerate careers, we're going to have, before we have Mark Lawrence, I think we do need to promo on the lunchbox today. All the Degenerate Friday fans should definitely tune in.
Oh, no doubt.
Because a very special guest joining us on the lunchbox today, a true South Florida sports legend. And if he recognizes my voice, we might have a brawl, right? He may hit me with a folding chair. If you can remember the things I used to say to him back in the early 90s.
As we were discussing, I think you had some unflattering things to say about the Jews, which they comprised, those all Jewish ladies comprised most of the front 6 rows at Dania Highlight at the time.
Yes, but yes, a very special episode as one Joey Kornblit will be joining Defo, and even I'll be there. On Mike
couldn't be a nicer guy. I mean, he's a wonderful person, Joey Kornblit. He really is a delight. And I know you said you didn't really see him during this period of time, but when I first came here, and he was at Miami Highline with the great Aziz and some of the other terrific players they had there on the roster at the time, and they deemed Miami Highline as the Yankee Stadium of Highline, and I believe it was that. I don't want to say that the disparity was like MLS versus European soccer Premier League stuff like it is in evidence with Messi playing with a bunch of what seemed like school kids compared to what he was used to facing. But there was a drop off, and then Joey, when he went to Dania Highlight, was also part of a movement where their roster improved. But seeing Joey at Miami Highlight, it was just unbelievable.
We got the great Mark Lawrence, Defo. So let's
beautiful.
jump right in on a Degenerate Friday and take it away.
Mark Lawrence of PlaybookSports.com, and good to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us. Were you ever guilty of cursing out the great Joey Kornblit at a highlight session, either at Miami or Dania?
No, but I saw the great Joey in action and threw up a meal or two watching him play.
Right. Somebody who doesn't like to bet favorites is not going to be a big Joey.
Exactly.
Oh, and he was 3 to 5 out of the 7 hole. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was a big, huge chalk guy, but very, very good. I got to give him his due. Joey was the guy.
Definitely was, and a darling of that blue hair crowd at Dania Highline. Oh, we love you, Joey. It was fantastic. He's going to join us later on the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show at 12 o'clock here on South Florida Live and the Let's Eat South Florida Facebook page. So we're looking forward to that, although Professor is worried that if he recognizes his voice, he may walk out.
I might have said some bad things about him over the years.
Yeah, I've strained my voice one time yelling, "Overserve, Joey!" And I might have thrown in a couple of, as I said, unflattering adjectives after that.
The Reuben I got at your sandwich shop was terrible.
Mark, how you doing? How's it going so far this season?
It's going pretty good, Defo, so far. We got out of a real nice preseason, got off to a pretty good start last week in week number 1, especially college football. National Football League was a little bit choppy. Sometimes you walk away with egg on your face like we did with the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. But, hey, there's another game, another week, and other teams playing this week. We'll keep that in the rearview mirror and focus on.
Well, that was week number 1, and I guess I don't know. Is it true? Is there always a bit of an overreaction among bettors to circumstances that transpired in the first week of the season? Whereas, I mean, you're looking at Dallas annihilating the Giants. The Giants are really, beyond levels of self-sabotage that even I have been victimized by in my lifetime, and victimized myself. Do you see people just going crazy one way or the other with teams like Dallas and the Giants, thinking that was very much representative of how they're going to look in week number 2 and maybe the rest of the year?
Well, I think that's a fatal flaw for most players, is reacting to what they saw in week number 1. I think largely because they were jonesing, waiting for the football season to begin. It finally got here. They saw some teams win impressively, and they want to get on that run. They don't want to miss that next win per se. Teams look bad. They got rubbed out like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they want nothing to do with teams like that the following week. And the most important part of it all is the odds makers adjust to those teams, and they're adjusting because they know the public is going to overreact in games like this. So I like week number 2 in the NFL largely due to overreaction situations.
And because go ahead, Professor.
I just want to have a question because we talked about it a little bit about 10 minutes ago. In terms of look-ahead lines versus what you're seeing as it plays out, I'll ask you because you may have a better historical perspective here than I have. Have you ever seen anything like the swings we're seeing on the Colorado Buffalo teams in college football? Because like last week, it was probably a good 7 or 8 points. I don't remember what it was in terms of the look-ahead line this week, but I think it might be like well over 2 touchdowns. So I've never seen swings like this before.
Oh, that's a great point, Professor. In fact, I got beat up on it a little bit last week trying to fade Colorado because of all the value there appeared to be in the Nebraska game. They were a 7-point underdog before they even played that game. And, they went off as the big favorite in the contest. And it's all about value. So if you find the value, you feel like you're at least positioned well with your side in the football game. The problem with the Colorado play is they played Nebraska, who is not a very good football team. And if you look at the history of what's going on with that head coach, Matt Rule, he's been terrific reviving college football programs. But in the first year, he's been absolutely horrific. The teams just showed nothing at all. And they're doing it again this year at Nebraska. They're showing nothing at all. They don't have anything at all to show. So sometimes you have to ask yourself, if you're into value situations, what are you using? Who's the team you're going to use? And are they capable of stepping up to the plate? Unfortunately, Nebraska was not capable of doing that last week.
Oh, do you feel like I do that no matter what with this Dion thing, did these first couple of games not come as a huge surprise?
Well, it does come as a huge surprise. One thing interesting I'll share with you guys is I have a good friend in Las Vegas who I do a weekly radio show with, and they do their conferences. The Pac-12 conference does all their preseason stuff in Vegas, and he got to interview a lot of players and coaches and so forth and whatnot. And he told me that he was never more pleasantly surprised than to interview Deion Sanders' 2 kids.
Okay.
Or not 2 kids, is one starting quarterback in the star, and the other Travis. I believe it's Hunter.
It is.
Yeah.
The two-way player.
Yeah,
who's terrific. And he was really impressed by how humble they were. There was no Deion Sanders in them per se, if you will. They were really, really rather well focused, and all the neon Deion stuff that you would expect from the players and the team, you just don't see. So maybe there is something going on at Colorado here, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until Colorado loses and fails to get the money before I'm going to step into the arena again and try and knock them down. As much as hard as it is to pass up the value in these games, they're playing arch rival Colorado State this week. And then Jay Norvell goes off and starts bad-mouthing Deion Sanders, the worst thing he could possibly do. Oh, my God, giving him locker room material. So
yeah,
I got to say,
And Dion definitely, capitalized on it.
absolutely.
It was like indicting Donald Trump. It
Yep.
was amazing. Yes.
Yeah, just give him a platform, let him go
Yeah.
off on it, and that's what Deanne will do. So I'm going to stay away from Colorado for a while and let them come back to earth a little bit, if you will, and hopefully maybe the price will still be there, the value will be there.
All right, like a rich cup of coffee, straight off the Colombian vine. We love the smell of point spreads in the morning. Um, what are you looking at playbooksports.com on this week's card, the colleges and the pros?
Well, I'm going to look at college football and sort of use this theme that the saying that goes, nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina. And I think that's the case this particular weekend in college football. First game we're going to look at is East Carolina, a football team that is going to take on Appalachian State. They're going to go to Asheville to play that football game. East Carolina, always a really good underdog type football team, and they're coming out this football season here 14-3 to the spread as a single-digit underdog when they come off a double-digit beat. But they're 12-4 as to the spread as road dogs when they have a winless record. They're coming in here real hungry. And their head coach, Mike Houston's a terrific underdog since he's been there against teams that are coming off a loss. He's 8-2 to the number that way. Look at the other side. Look at Appalachian State. They're just 1-10 to the spread. The last 11 times they've been laid points in football games. Very popular public team, but they just don't get the money laying points, get too much public support. And they're coming off a cruel double overtime loss to North Carolina last week. This defense if you take a look at Appalachian State, is dissolving, if you will. The last 4 games, they're allowing 442 yards a game. I think East Carolina is a live dog in this football game. I'm going to play them plus the points, possibly in the upset here.
Excellent. All right. So East Carolina, and you mentioned you were going to be all over the state in these college football selections. Are you looking at the North Carolina game?
No, we're going to go to the South Carolina game.
Okay.
We're going to we'll go down south rather than up north. Look at the Gamecocks here coming into this football game. They're playing with revenge from a 48-7 home loss last year. That was Shane Beamer's worst loss since he took over the Gamecock program here. So he'll be focused for this football game. You also have a little bit of history here. The visiting team has won the money 7 years in a row. So it's been really, really good for the visiting team in the series here. The Georgia Bulldogs, the defending national champions, the public darlings, they have this huge target on their back. They've opened up with 2 wins against a pair of high schools, Tennessee Martin and Ball State. Touch football games.
Yeah.
And they really haven't been tested. And you look at Kirby Smart for all the good things he's done. He's really struggled at home, if you will, as a favorite of 20 or more points. He's been in that role 21 times. He's lost the money 14 of those 21 games. I think this is a real nice spot for South Carolina to come in here and bring Georgia down to earth here. I'm going to play them plus 27.5 points. I don't know if we're going to see the upset. That would be stepping off a cliff to say that.
Yeah.
But at least I think the points are the value in the game, and I'll play North or South Carolina plus the points in this contest.
I would say, Defo, if you're taking that one, if you can take it today, I would, because I've heard more than a few people who are on the Gamecocks this weekend.
And I believe they should be. Good call, Professor.
All right. Pesky Pirates and the Gamecocks out of Carolina in the college ranks. This is Mark Lawrence, of course, playbooksports.com. Outstanding for, an essential tool, actually, for a lot of people when it comes to handicapping. I know the Polyman says all of the people at Magic City Casino are constantly hounding him, saying, hey, when's Mark Lawrence coming on with Defo, and how do we get all of his stuff? But a couple in the pros, are you looking on the NFL slate with anything that lights up?
Yeah, we're going to use the same theory and thought about value in football games and go in a complete double reversal role for 2 teams here, where they're changing roles from what they were to what they will be this week. 2 teams that won straight up as underdogs on the road, going home and now laying points, to teams that lost straight up at home as favorites and now are taking points on the road. The first is going to be Chicago, the Bears, taking 2.5 against Tampa Bay. It's not really, you're probably not going to love backing the Chicago Bears, but I can see Tampa Bay coming back to earth real quick here with Baker Mayfield. I don't know if he's got 2 good games in a row in him, let alone having to change roles and lay points here in a football game like this. I think Chicago's really an excellent side in this football contest, an overlooked dog, if you will. But the other one I like even better is Seattle taking 4.5 against Detroit. Seahawks come up really ugly in their first home game last week, laid points and really, really played poorly. Detroit comes off that huge win, opening season win at Kansas City on a Thursday night, won the game straight up. And the public cannot get enough of the Detroit Lions. Started last year when they won 9 football games. And if I share this with you or not, but I will, it's really, I think, one of the best handicapping angles there are in the National Football League, and it applies against about 3 NFL teams this year. But what Detroit did last season is they won more games last year than they won in their previous 2 years combined. And you take teams like that in the National Football League and you go out and back them as a favorite the following year, my goodness, you'll be the loan company and you'll be loaning money out to people that try to beat them. It's unbelievably how poorly they do in the role of a favorite here. So I'm going to fade Detroit, this popular public favorite, and back the hungry dog Seattle Seahawks for my second of the 2 inside-out NFL plays this week.
I do understand that Dan Campbell is planning on eating a live hawk before the game to motivate his team. I mean, and I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah, Detroit has certainly become the darling of many, many people. And coming off that win against the Chiefs, I would imagine those feelings are bolstered. And Seattle was probably, as disappointing as any team in week number 1 in the National Football League with a very deflating performance.
Right. Next to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and the Bears, I mean, you have a serious, cojones, Mark Lawrence, to bet on the Bears after what we witnessed last week. That's what we love about you. You stick with the numbers, the numerology, the theories. This is under the heading of the double reverse theory, and you are ready to just take that handoff and go around the right side like you were O.J. Simpson in the student body right.
Well, I call those tape jobs, Defo, where you put tape over the names of the teams. You forget about who they are, the name of the team, and you just play the situations out. And it just happens, the tape happens to go over the name of the Chicago Bears. So, we'll rip the tape off and play them in a situation like this. And I'm going to pass this number along to you guys here just before we leave here.
Okay.
You're talking about bounce back situations. The Pittsburgh Steelers this week, I mean, thoroughly embarrassed, probably the most of all teams in the NFL last week, at home, coming back at home against the Cleveland Browns, where they beat them 19 times in a row straight up in the regular season at home in Pittsburgh. You've also got us Pittsburgh playing at home on a Monday night football game. The last 21 times Pittsburgh's been at home on a Monday night football game, they've lost the game on the scoreboard only 1 time. They're 20-1 straight up. I think you'll find Pittsburgh in a bounce back role against Cleveland this week in this evening up factor, if you will, in week 2, based off of what happened in week 1 in the NFL.
All right. Where can our viewers, our listeners get a hold of the material from Playbook Sports?
Everything is available online at playbooksports.com. Our weekly newsletter is out right now, 19 pages chock full with great insight and winning information, write-ups on every game. Check it out all online at playbooksports.com.
All right, keep playing those dogs, Mark Lawrence. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for making time for us this week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Great to have you on the show.
You have yourself a great week as well.
You too, Mark.
All right, Mark Lawrence, ladies and gentlemen. All right, what do you think, Professor? Can we get a couple of commercials in, then come back and wrap things up? Does that
I
sound
think
good?
we can probably do that.
All right. Do you want to do the standard thing
Hold
here?
on. Let's pull this up here. Give me 1 second.
And don't forget, the great Joey Kornblick going to join us later on today. That's on Let's Eat South Florida
Should
on
be
Facebook.
very interesting.
Yeah. He's such a gentleman. He believe me, I think, it's kind of like when you're screaming at a horse. I've had this with jockeys, though, where, I was cursing out a jockey. They used to walk through the crowd on their way back to the jocks room from the racetrack itself at both Hialeah and Gulfstream Park. And, I got to be very friendly at one time with the great Jerry Bailey. And yet he still never forgot some of the things that I had said to him on his way back to the jocks room after he, in my estimation, might have not given the most, integrity-laced rides on a 3-to-5 shot. You're like, Jerry, what are you, Carmine Abatello? He, didn't appreciate that. Nobody liked the Abatello reference.
Yeah.
Everybody immediately. You could have called him a fuckface, and he would have been. You would have considered it a compliment compared to comparing him to Abatello.
All right, we ready?
All right. We're going to come back a couple of minutes more for you here on the show. And appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back to our regular schedule, although I'm kind of digging this 8 o'clock start, Professor. Why am I pressing this button
I don't
every
know.
day at 7.
I don't totally get that either. But yeah, you have to ask Lubie about that.
I think it may be time to make a conversion here. Go 8 to 10. No.
Adjust the programming. Well, you're gonna have to talk to the PD about that.
Yeah. What would be his objection? Do you think?
I'm so busy. Are you kidding me? I got trivia tonight. I can't be doing the show till 10 o'clock and then do everything and then run around for Mike Mayo. What do you want me to do?
Is he really going to come back as Mr. Morocco, and that's how he wants to be known?
Could be.
And he's going to have some kind of Moroccan outfit that he wears, and maybe even considers getting on a minor league like Central Florida wrestling circuit.
There you go. Crowd.
Yeah, we're doing some shows in Clearwater this week. Okay, great, man. Who's the headliner? Mr. Morocco, some cat out of South Florida. And it's Lubie shows up with a fez and some pointy yellow shoes. Great. All right, we're going to come back in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 9:01.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa on your side?
All right, welcome back to the show. This has come under heavy consideration right now, the possible new post time for the program here. And what will be, I mean, you know Lubie as well or better than anybody, Professor, having hung out with him and engaged in many a Lubie conversation and episode over the years. What will his objections be?
I have no idea. I'd probably be the time coincidence with the Mayo show. That's the only thing I can really see, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Because, but he.
We got to be first. We got to be first with the breaking news on the. Remember when Lubie wanted to break news on the show? When we first started, Lubie wanted to do a very facts-driven sports show.
Of course, that would have gained him massive popularity at the time when no one, gave a shit about it. I will say this,
What a great guest! He's going to break down the Pistons Raptors game for us tonight.
Oh, and he was in love with stiffs. I mean, the more hardcore guys that even I couldn't get to crack up. Where you had, and that was always a mission of ours. There was a guy, Howard Beck, who's a fairly authoritative basketball analyst, and people seem to have a good deal of respect for, and probably deservedly so. He seems very, very serious about what he's doing, and we could not get this guy. We could say anything, and we could not get this guy to even offer up a gratuitous radio chuckle, and then, as he's thinking, who is this fucking asshole I'm on with, and how quickly can I get off the phone? Just continues to speak. But we actually got him going. And Lubie loved it. He made a vital transformation in terms of his opinion about how to do the shows. I think forced by the fact that the likelihood of us doing some kind of fact-based, fast-paced. I mean, Jim Sarney would love the transformation, but I think we're going to stick with what's working for us. Over the many, many years. And anyway, the stuff is just too funny, right? I mean, even like you said, this Mel Tucker thing. What kind of story? I mean, it could only come from the world of sports. And as you look at it, you're thinking,
because it's a creepy story if it's like a politician or something. But when it's a football coach, it's genuinely funny.
It absolutely is. I was thinking today about one of the most popular things now that you hear. When you're associating anybody in politics anymore with what's been going on, and it's like with any politician, you start thinking right away, will the defendant please rise? Because everybody's getting indicted, arrested, this and that. What did you think? You're kind of a gun advocate of sorts, Professor. I don't know, like you're a hunter.
I mean, I own guns. I don't know. I'm an advocate.
But you're not, one of these people that's advocating that everybody, goes around DeSantis and starts waving guns in the street.
No. I don't carry my guns around. I've got hunting guns. That,
right.
I grew up hunting with. I know I'm not.
Which would seem, the appropriate.
Buy a gun so I can play army in the woods with my friends out in the Everglades in case the Cubans invade or some bullshit like that. I think we actually hit one this week, Defo, in terms of sports is fun, right? Like that. Sports is not the we have to take it seriously thing. And I think we hit that story this week with Aaron Rodgers, with what happened on Monday night. And like everybody telling me, because I'm just laughing my ass off at what happened there. Like, you should feel terrible. You should feel like a bad person for all. Well, first of all, why should I feel bad about this? Like the guy has spent the last 4 years trying to prove himself the biggest douchebag possible. Everybody in the Packers organization hates him. His own family hate. When your mom hates, when you're a multi-millionaire, multi-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, and your mom hates you, you're a douchebag. Okay,
I would have to lean that way.
His contract is going to get fully paid, even if he never plays another down in the NFL. He's going to get the best medical care possible, and this is not like a life-threatening injury. He's not even going to have a limp 2 years from now when it finally heals. Yes, it may be a career-threatening injury, but that's the only thing it does is impact his career. So I find it freaking hysterical that Aaron Rodgers can now try to rub some ivermectin on his leg and hope it magically heals. I found that great today when I woke up and Aaron Rodgers is sending out the Instagram of him thanking the doctors. Oh, now you trust doctors, do you, Aaron? Now when it comes to my Achilles tendon, I didn't send the MRI to fucking Joe Rogan to go look at it and examine. I didn't import Blue from Venus or whatever the hell it was named to do the surgery. Like now
he didn't show it on the Pat McAfee show.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You knew more than the doctors until you needed the surgery, did you, Aaron?
At that point, right. I mean, you're not just going to any jackass to have something like that taken care of. Whatever position. I mean, the ironies are so insane, but even more incredible is that now all of a sudden the very reason that Rodgers was there in the first place at 40 years old, Zach Wilson's just absolutely abysmal start to his career. The people in New York have convinced themselves that somehow he has magically been healed. It kind of reminds me of
like Jameis Winston was seriously talked about this week. When Jameis Winston is an actual option, you're kind of hoping that Zach Wilson doesn't totally suck.
Yeah, you're thinking that'd be a blessing in disguise. I mean, I mean, how this guy all of a sudden is just going to be, go from absolute dog meat to being great or good enough.
Game, right?
What's that?
Like, you saw the game. Like 80% of the passes he threw were screen passes. Like that. Clearly, Saleh did not trust him to throw the football down the field.
No.
And with good reason, because honestly, the couple of times he tried to throw the ball more than like 5 yards down the field, he had like a near interception. Wilson, the other Wilson, had to make the greatest catch maybe I've ever seen in my life, where he bats it up.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Like there's a reason they didn't trust him to throw anything other than screen passes. I don't blame.
And that pick written all over it, or at least
But anyway, my point is Like, of course, if you want to laugh at Aaron Rodgers because there's no real world consequence. Like, if someone
Yes.
in the real world, someone who works in a warehouse tears their Achilles tendon, it's a big deal, right? Like, maybe they don't have the insurance for a good doctor or whatever. It could be. For Aaron Rodgers, it's nothing. This means absolutely nothing. There's no consequences. So go ahead and laugh at him. Why? Because he's been asking for it for like 4 years. That's the people in Green.
He has been.
That's the people in Green Bay if they feel bad for Aaron Rodgers Monday night or today. I promise. Ask Aaron Rodgers' mom if she feels bad for him because she doesn't.
His brother wasn't a big fan either.
No, the whole family hates him. Again, this is really all you need to know about Aaron Rodgers. Is your multimillionaire, well into the 9 figures worth, former MVP, blah, 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 the greatest life in the world. And number one, your family hates you. And number two, like every woman you've ever dated hates you. Like there's something involved there.
I give him credit for having the balls to get in the car with Danica Patrick driving.
But she doesn't. I mean, look, like Olivia Munn. Yes. And Danica Patrick and the actress from those terrible Divergent movies whose name I can't. Like, that's what he was doing for a long time. And now he's like at Blue from Venus or whatever the hell it is, Blue from Earth. Like, you're going down the scale and all the ones above you on the scale hate you like poison now. Like, there's something about this guy that ain't great. Let's be honest.
Yes. It's kind of like the Trump sycophants who all end up, either out of work or in jail. And they have turned their back on the idea that this was advantageous for him to be in that person's acquaintance. I mean that was wild. But all of a sudden in New York, they feel like Zach Wilson is just fine.
No, they don't. They're lying about that. They know that Zach Wilson sucks. They
literally.
Know,
I mean, even a cynical.
They know it's over.
A cynical source as the New York Post has been singing the praises of the idea that somehow this can work.
Well, yeah, right? Because they can't. It's week 2. They can't just say, "Oh no, we suck again," and pack it in. Like they've got to, sell some papers. But no, on a real level, they watch the game. They know Zach Wilson sucks.
If you build it, Jets trying to boost Wilson's confidence as sudden QB1. Objective remains the same for defense. Cobb still motivated without his pal. I mean, they hired every Green Bay Packer.
You had me that last night. There is no way Randall Cobb feels good about this season without Aaron Rodgers. Like, he came to New York for Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't there for Zach Wilson. Come on.
That's what they're contending here in today's article.
I'm just saying, you get to a level where, you read a headline and you're like, okay, you kind of had me. I want to believe. Oh, no, that's just bullshit. Like, you're just lying now. It's not even a good lie.
No, it seems a little far-fetched that this guy who had them in such a panic that even with no leverage, they still were delivering, a large cachet of draft picks for Aaron Rodgers' services, doled out all of this Woody Johnson cash, and then the very reason that they got to all of this in the first place, all of a sudden he's just fine. It seems like, you're putting a Band-Aid on a brain tumor there. All right, Professor, a lot of fun. Thank you. Good luck with your college plays this week. We thank Mark Lawrence for joining us here on the show. We'll get back to our regular schedule, but we'll have to take that under account. I think Lubie's objection would be,
there's no way that I could do this. I have to drive all over town to get ready for that Mike Mayo show.
So once again, Mayo, the nemesis of us making advances here on this program. No, we'll be out there with Mike Mayo and Joey Corbett, our special guest. That's going to be at Gulfstream Park later on today. I can't
believe that development. To be honest, like that blows my mind.
You know what? It was something that it would have been nice if it was just a surprise, but it was too hot to keep a secret. And I wanted people to know about this because I know Mayo is very excited about it because he's a huge Joey fan, as am I. And I believe you're a fan, but just under the circumstances.
I'm not a fan. I am a fan of his accomplishments. I realize he is like the Michael Jordan of highlight. I get that, but no, I was not a fan. Like, how can you be at those odds? Like, you look at the Quinella.
It was impossible, yeah.
A 4-7 Quinella would be like 9-1 because he was half of it. I mean,
out of the 7, yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, I asked him if he, was even familiar with numbers below 4. Because I remember that they went to the random seeding or whatever that was.
Yeah.
and so Joey could be out of the one hole.
Which never actually happened, at least not in singles. Like
We
they
can ask
said
him
that,
about that. Yeah,
they said that, but then the random was still a lot of sixes and
the
sevens.
random was like our random phone scrambler.
Yeah,
and,
like once in a while he'd get an 8 spot. That was about as good as it got.
deciding whether Lenny the Chronic was going to be the guy who won the tiebreaker. Certain
might be
bogus
a little-
elements to that. Yeah,
A
All right.
little less than random in the randomness.
All right, my friend. Thanks so much. It was a lot of fun, and we'll see you later on today. Thanks for putting a show together and doing what you have been to fill in for the great Mike Lubie Lubitz. And we will see you at 12 o'clock today with Joey Kornblit as part of the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show from Gulfstream Park. As we leave you now, that
The time.
it's 9:15.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.